The Pink executive never saw it coming. One moment he's lounging on his private beach, the next he's face down in the sand with nothing but a cardboard sign and broken dreams. But here's what actually happened between those two moments. Picture this. Mr. Pink owned everything. The villa, the pristine coastline, even the rights to the sunset views. He'd strut around his property like he owned the world because, well, in his little corner, he did. Gray was just another worker back then, scrubbing tiles and trimming hedges for barely enough to survive. One scorching afternoon, Gray made a mistake. He stepped onto the beach during his break. Just wanted to feel the ocean breeze for 30 seconds. That's all it took. Pink exploded, screaming, shoving, making a scene in front of everyone. "You're fired!" He yelled, "Get out of here. Don't ever come back." Gray tried apologizing, tried explaining he was still on the property to finish his shift. Didn't matter. Pink wanted him humiliated, wanted him gone. So Gray left, walked away without another word while Pink celebrated his little power trip with an expensive cocktail. What Pink didn't know was that Gray went home to his grandfather that evening. The old man was sick, needed medicine, needed care. Gray had been working himself to exhaustion, trying to afford it all. Getting fired wasn't just embarrassing, it was devastating. But something shifted in Gray that night. While his grandfather slept, he pulled out old blueprints he'd been sketching for years. Business plans, investment strategies, property development concepts he'd never had the confidence to pursue. Desperation does something to people. It either breaks them completely or forges them into something harder. Gray chose the second option. He started small, took whatever jobs he could find, even when contractors laughed at him. "Please," he'd say, "please. Give me a chance." One boss finally did, then another. Gray didn't just work hard, he worked smart, learning everything about real estate, about property law, about the exact mechanisms that kept people like Pink on top. Months blurred together. Gray barely slept. His grandfather recovered slowly while Gray built something bigger than either of them imagined. He wasn't just earning money anymore. He was acquiring knowledge, connections, leverage. Then came the day Gray walked past Pink's villa again. The beach looked exactly the same. Pink was still there, still smug, still convinced his little empire was untouchable. He had no idea Gray was about to buy everything right out from under him. The transaction happened quietly. No dramatic confrontation, no warning signs, just lawyers, paperwork, and money changing hands. Gray purchased the entire property through a shell company Pink had never heard of. By the time Pink realized what was happening, it was already done. The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday morning. Pink read it 3 times, convinced it was some kind of mistake. His calls went unanswered. His lawyers explained there was nothing they could do. Everything was legal. Everything was final. The new owner wanted him out immediately. Gray stood at the property line watching movers clear out Pink's belongings. He didn't gloat, didn't make speeches, just observed silently as his former boss stumbled around in confusion, demanding answers nobody would give him. Pink finally spotted Gray in the distance. Recognition flickered across his face, then disbelief, then something close to terror. "You," Pink whispered, "this can't be you." Gray didn't respond, didn't need to. The security team he'd hired escorted Pink off the premises while he clutched a single box of personal items. The same beach where he'd humiliated Gray now belonged to someone else entirely. Pink dropped to his knees in the sand, begging for mercy, begging for another chance. The irony wasn't lost on anyone watching. But Gray wasn't interested in revenge theater. He had plans for this property, serious development plans that would actually benefit the community instead of serving as one man's private playground. He turned away while Pink was still pleading, already focused on construction timelines and permit applications. Weeks later, someone spotted Pink on a street corner. Different city, different circumstances. He was holding a sign, asking for work, asking for help. The man who'd once fired people for stepping on his beach now couldn't afford a beach towel. Gray heard about it through mutual contacts. He felt nothing, not satisfaction, not pity, nothing at all. His grandfather asked him once if it was worth it, all that struggle, all that sacrifice, just to prove a point. Gray looked at the thriving development he'd built, at the jobs he'd created, at the future he'd secured for himself and his family. "It was never about proving a point," he said. "It was about survival. Pink just happened to be in the way. Sometimes the people who treat you worst end up teaching you the most valuable lessons, not through wisdom or kindness, but by showing you exactly what happens when power becomes your only identity. Gray didn't destroy Pink. Pink destroyed himself the moment he believed his position made him untouchable. That's the real difference between temporary success and lasting achievement.